Good morning, everyone. Um, this is Ryan Jackson from Ryan Jackson LLC, and on this episode, I will be talking about the 100-year remembrance of the Greenwood Massacre. Greenwood Massacre occurred 100 years ago today, May 31st, 1921, in the Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma was all black businesses, uh, doctors' offices, dentist offices, schools, um, movie theaters, cab companies, bus companies, what so have you, beauty parlors, restaurants. The Greenwood District of Tulsa, Oklahoma at that time, while all the prominent black people lived in this district and everyday people. Um, it was kind of like how Chinatown is in San Francisco and in New York City. That's what it was for black people in Tulsa, the Greenwood District. And it was very prominent. Um, Black people were doing very well. They owned and controlled their own businesses. They had their own property, owned their own homes, cars, buses, all sorts of things. Taught their own children, had their own schools, hospitals, what have you. It was a black mecca, and it was located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And 100 years ago today, the worst domestic terrorist attack in U.S. history occurred in that district. Um, this makes me so angry because the descendants of the survivors from the massacre and the people that were murdered have yet to receive justice and compensation for the businesses and property that was destroyed. Um, I just found out about the Tulsa Massacre about 6 years ago, thanks to Dr. Boyce Watkins. He did a lecture here at an event here at Lady College in Oakland, and he was showed a movie about Black Wall Street, and that was my first time seeing it and hearing about it, Black Wall Street. 39 years of age, and I had never heard about this. It's a damn shame. But be that as it may, um, I'm educating myself, as I hope many of you will too, and learn about this massacre because it's not being taught to our kids in the schools. And why would it? These white supremacist public schools don't want to teach this. They don't want to teach the truth. But they will tell you about the American Revolution, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam. They teach that, but they won't teach you about this. But in any event, the massacre started during Memorial Day weekend. 19-year-old young black man was a shoe shiner downtown Tulsa. His name was Dick Rowland. He was 19 years old. Um, at that time, Oklahoma had was a state, had become a state like in 1907. So Oklahoma only had been a state for 14 years. And so before that, it was a territory. It was Indian territory. But black people had moved there to escape, the racism of Jim Crow South, or the Jim Crow South. The Jim Crow laws were implemented in the 1890s. And so a lot of black people from the South intermingled with the indigenous Indian tribes that was in Oklahoma. And they made that their home, to escape the racism of the South. In any event, 1907, Oklahoma was granted statehood, and white people from the South brought their racist policies with them, and Oklahoma implemented the Jim Crow laws. And so Mr. Dick Rowland, uh, his white boss, wouldn't allow his black employee to use the bathroom. He had to go to another building to use the bathroom for colored people. So he enters this building, and the bathroom, excuse me, the bathroom is located on the fourth floor of the building that he was, had to go into. So he's on the elevator, and it's a young white girl, 17 years old. She was an elevator operator by the name of Sarah Page. She worked at the Drexel building. That's where Mr. Page had to go use the bathroom. So there was a certain jolt of the elevator, like a very violent movement, I guess, when the elevator was going up. And so Mr. Rowland bumped into Sarah Page, bumped into her, may have stepped on her foot, what so have you. And so she starts screaming. So Mr. Page runs from the elevator and runs out the building. So, she told the people in the building what happened. They called the police. So later, the police come to Mr. Rowland's house and arrest him and take him to jail in downtown Tulsa at the courthouse. So, there's a mob of angry white people because, word of mouth spread. And the mob was, 50 people, then 100 people, then 200 people, then 300, 500 people start growing. So the black residents heard of this, and the black men who were war veterans from World War One got dressed in their army uniforms and marched down to downtown Tulsa to protect Mr. Rowland because they didn't want anything to happen to him. And so there was an angry crowd of white mob. They saw this and they saw that these black men were armed, and so they got mad. And so they went and grabbed their guns and came back. So the sheriff had told the black soldiers that nothing would happen to Mr. Rowland, that he wouldn't be murdered, and that he would be okay. And so while the black men were standing outside, making sure that Mr. Rowland was safe, one of the white terrorists got into a confrontation with a black veteran and tried to grab his gun. And then the gun went off. One shot was fired, a couple of shots was fired, and then all hell broke loose in the streets of downtown Tulsa. Well, from that end, the black soldiers guarded the Greenwood District. It was a railroad that separated Greenwood from the rest of Tulsa. And so they were on the perimeter of Tulsa, of Greenwood, to guard it, to protect the businesses and the homes of the people, of Greenwood, in the Greenwood District, to keep the white mob from entering. And so they were able to hold them off. And then later that morning, this was at like maybe 2, 3 in the morning, the sun came up that morning. Next thing you know, airplanes were flying over and dropping bombs on homes and businesses. And another mob came with torches and guns and fighting, and gunfight ensued. Many of the black veterans were murdered. They were outnumbered, but they put up a fight. They put up a fight. They did not give up. But they didn't have airplanes. And so these white terrorists flew planes and bombed churches. They bombed buildings. They bombed homes. They ran through the streets, looting, stealing, and murdering innocent men, women, and children. They went through the streets of Greenwood, the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma, murdering innocent men, women, and children. They looted businesses. They bombed homes. They bombed churches. They bombed businesses. They destroyed the Greenwood District. The survivors were rounded up. Oh, forgot to mention, the sheriff, I forgot to mention this, the sheriff deputized the angry mobsters. He deputized them and gave them guns and told them to go kill a nigger, go kill some niggers. Forgot to mention that. Well, the survivors were rounded up and put in internment camps. They weren't given any information about their loved ones, told that they were alive, dead, had survived, or where their loved ones were. A lot of people moved out of Tulsa, moved to, Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City. A lot of the people that were there, that survived, like I said, were put in internment camps, were searched, were stripped of their property, had no money, and had no information on their loved ones. The ones that perished were thrown in unmarked graves, buried like a dead animal on the street in an unmarked grave. They weren't given a proper burial. They weren't given the respect and dignity of life. This was 1921, 100 years ago. Now, last year, the bodies were excavated at the cemetery, and they wanted to give them a proper burial, which is noble. But the descendants of the survivors and the ones murdered of this terrorist attack have yet to receive justice from the state of Oklahoma, the city of Tulsa, the county and of Tulsa, and any reparations or compensation for what they went through. The state of Oklahoma, the city of Tulsa, murdered Black people, took their land, stole the land, and then covered it up and refused to tell the truth. And many Black people in Tulsa that survived and that were there, they didn't want to tell the story because they were so traumatized that they wanted to pretend it never happened or just forget about it. But it came to light in 1996, 75 years later, when survivors started doing, recorded documentaries and witness accounts of what happened. And so it gained momentum over the years, over the last 25 years. People are now finding out about the Tulsa Massacre, which is good. But it pisses me off because when America went to war with Japan in World War II, out here in California, the U.S. government put Japanese Americans in internment camps. Japanese Americans in internment camps. So, to kind of, right their wrong, our government, gave reparations to Japanese Americans, and rightfully so. This government has given reparations to Jewish Americans, to Israel, for the Holocaust, something the United States wasn't even responsible for. Germany was responsible for the Holocaust, but we've given Jewish people reparations. It still is to this day. This is documented that Black people lost land, billions of dollars of wealth in land, businesses, homes. They lost their lives. Over 300 were murdered, over 800 were injured, 10,000 were left homeless, and they don't receive not a cent. Are you kidding me? but we're just going to commemorate it. And yes, it was a horrible, tragic event. It should have never happened. Yeah, you're right. It should have never happened. But people lost their lives. Not only that, this country refused to tell the story. They denied it. Oklahoma, the city of Tulsa, denied any responsibility. They didn't even want to tell the story. They pretended like it didn't happen, like it never happened. But yet we're supposed to, and see, this goes back to, you know, um, our votes, who we voting for, the people we vote in office. If they can't do right by us, they don't deserve our votes. If they don't fight for us, fight for what's right, give us what's deserved, reparations. They don't deserve our vote. It's just cheap political talk. We must remember, let's not forget, cut the bullshit and cut the check. That's all we need. Just cut the bullshit and cut the check. But this government won't do it. Not for black people. Even though we built this country, other ethnic groups have come to this country to freeload. They wanted free land and free black labor. We built this country from ground up, and we haven't received one penny. We want our reparations, U.S. government. Cut the bullshit and cut the check. Damn it. It's so infuriating. Innocent people had to lose their lives. Um, it's also should be noted that the media and the newspaper in Tulsa, I can't remember the name of it, but they printed up a lie that Dick Rowland had had raped Sarah Page, which that wasn't the case. And so the white mob wanted him lynched. They wanted him lynched. And see, back even then, 100 years ago, the media spread lies. Even today, the media spread lies. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed. So while y'all celebrate Memorial Day, and remembering those who gave their lives for this nation's democracy, remember those who lost their lives in Tulsa. Remember those who gave their lives protecting their families, their homes, their businesses, their churches. Remember those people who died on a damn lie spread by the newspaper, the racist newspaper in Tulsa. It was an innocent accident. It could have happened to anybody. Dick Rowland was just trying to use the restroom. The elevator jerked or whatever. It was a sudden movement of the elevator while it was going up. He bumped into this young lady. She screamed. He ran. Oh, he must have raped her. Jesse Washington died 4 or 5 years earlier in Waco, Texas. He was lynched. Body was burned and body parts chopped up and sold. And a postcard with his corpse was printed around the country. 1916 in Waco, Texas. Jesse Washington died on the lie. Emmett Till was murdered on the lie. Down in Mississippi in 1955, a 14-year-old teenager from Chicago was visiting relatives for the summer. It was alleged that he whistled at a white woman. Oh, and recently she said she made the story up. I think it came out like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago that she admitted that she made the story up. So why isn't she brought up on charges? Emmett Till was murdered mercilessly down in Mississippi. by white terrorists on a lie. Many black men have been murdered on lies by white people, by white women. So should we believe women? And I look at Bill Cosby. You know, he was denied parole, what's have you, last week. Many black men have been sent to prison and died mercilessly on white women lies. Not all women should be believed. I'm not saying that all men should be believed, but women lie. If men lie, women lie too. We're both human. We both lie. Men lie, women lie. Men tell the truth, women tell the truth. That's the truth. We all lie. It don't matter what gender you are. We all lie. But this Tulsa race massacre. This country would never right its wrong. America, we people will be barbecuing, going to the beach because today is the official day of the first day of summer. They're opening up the state economies, you know, um, and while people, celebrate, go to the beach, eat barbecue, hot dogs, hamburgers. Just remember that it would never have been a Memorial Day if it wasn't for Black Union soldiers who wanted to honor their comrades that were murdered in the Confederate prison. There never would have been a Memorial Day for Black if it wasn't for Black Union soldiers. Just keep that in mind. So while you're drinking your beer and eating your hamburgers and choking yourself with hot dogs, just remember that. Keep that in mind. No Memorial Day if it wasn't for Black Union soldiers. But back to this Tulsa race massacre. Yeah, um, the state of Oklahoma owes the descendants of people that were murdered and survived this horrific terrorist attack. They owe them money. They owe them justice. They do, and they never received it, and they haven't received a cent of in reparations. But had it been white people, they would have been paying their kids until for the next God knows how long. But that's America for you. White supremacy is working 24/7, 365 days a year, triple overtime to suppress the truth and to deny justice and reparations. And we want our reparations. No reparations, no vote. Politics is all about quid pro quo. Dr. Claude Anderson has said that in his book, Black Labor, White Wealth, and Powernomics. Dr. Boyce Watkins has said this time and time again. Ice Cube told y'all this last summer, but y'all tried to make him look like a buffoon and try to turn him into an uneducated Trump supporter, because this man demanded, he said black people should demand things for their votes, that politics should be quid pro quo. That's what it's about. But people, many of y'all want to turn Ice Cube into a Trump supporting buffoon. Shame on y'all. But y'all love Uncle Joe. Y'all so-called Uncle Joe. He invited to the barbecue a man that sent thousands of black men to the gulags in the 1990s, who told black people on the Breakfast Club that if you don't vote for him, you ain't black. And yet he hasn't done a damn thing for black people. No tangibles. But he passed tangibles for the LGBTQ community, for the Asian American Pacific Islander community, for immigrants, but not black people. But this is what y'all vote for. But in any event, so today and tomorrow, May 31st, today and June 1st, was the aftermath of the Tulsa Race Massacre, or the Greenwood Massacre, or the Black Wall Street Massacre, whatever you want to call it. 100-year commemoration of that. Let's not forget the people, our descendants. Let's not forget the people that were murdered, that were left homeless, that were left broke, in despair, and had to leave their community. Let's not forget them. May they rest in heaven. Let's not forget them, y'all. Tulsa, 1921, Greenwood Massacre. Never forget. Our Holocaust continues. Never forget, never forgive. Till next time, y'all take care. All right, have a good day and enjoy the weather wherever you may be. And just take the time to educate yourself on this massacre for those that may not know about it. And take the time to see, what this nation has has done to us and what it's continuing to do to us. And while many Black people say we need reparations now, take the time to educate yourself instead of kicking back and drinking beer and getting drunk and being gluttonous with hamburgers and hot dogs. Take the time to educate yourself. That's all. Educated people are powerful people. Never forget that. And educated people are a powerful people. Never forget that. Till next time, y'all. Take care. Have a good day. Love y'all. I'm out. Peace.